right. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Harrison Smith, and I'm the editor of Bunker Project's Handoff series. So Bunker Projects is a Pittsburgh-based artist residency and experimental gallery specializing in contemporary and multidisciplinary art making. Tonight's programming is part of our online reviews new Handoff series, which is designed to provide emerging Black visual artists with the opportunity to think and write critically about key topics around their creative practice. So tonight we're excited to bring artist Teena Wilder, the Handoff's most recent essay contributor, together with Bunker board member Tara Fay and artist Wày Gilbert in conversation for tonight's live webinar. So first, a bit more about our panelists today. So Teena Wilder is a multidisciplinary artist and writer based in Madison, Wisconsin. Teena was raised in rural Summerton, South Carolina, and received their BFA from the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design in new studio practice with minors in Humanities and Art History. Joining Teena today, we have Wày Gilbert and Fay Coleman. Wày is an artist born, based, and raised in Milwaukee, currently completing her undergraduate degree at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. Her work addresses themes of Blackness, space, and religion. And lastly, we have Fay Coleman, and Fay is an independent curator, producer, and conceptual artist from Buffalo, New York. So today we'll begin with a 30 to 45-minute discussion between our panelists, and we're going to follow that by a 25-minute Q&A session. So if you have any questions during their conversation, please go ahead and submit them into the Q&A discussion that you'll find access to at the bottom of your screen. And we'll address all of those when we get to the Q&A. So thank you again for joining us tonight. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Teena.
Hey y'all. So this is going to be really laid back. I'll give like an explanation of what we're going to be doing tonight, and then we can just get right into it. So we're going to I am not a big fan of artist talks, and I feel like they have this weird hierarchical structure where everybody just kind of listens to somebody talk about themselves, which is kind of strange to me a little bit. So instead of just a general artist talk, we're going to have a discussion. And I would love to hear also what you all have to say in the Q&A, if you also want to be a part of the discussion. And basically, if you read my passage for Bunker, you know that I work a lot with Blackness, Blackhood, stillness, and hair. So I have had these amazing people decide to be in conversation with me tonight around hair and just hair culture and how it intersects with Black culture. We all had kind of like homework where we had to get a piece of writing. And then what we would do is we're going to read that piece of writing that we decided to have, and then we're going to have just a discussion on it. And every single one of us have a piece of writing. So there's going to be at least 3. And then depending on time, maybe we'll have more, but we're going to start with 3. And then do y'all want me to go first, or y'all want to volunteer?
No, you should go first.
Okay, I can go first. So my piece of writing is from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. This is what it looks like by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And then it reads on page 5, so it's pretty like early in the book. There is such tenderness in braiding the hair of someone you love. Kindness and something more flow between the braider and the braided, the two connected by the cord of the plait. And so we say, it is the flowing hair of Mother Earth. When we braid sweetgrass, we are braiding the hair of Mother Earth, showing her our loving attention, our care for her beauty and well-being, and gratitude for all she has given us. Okay, so I think Harrison, also dropped the passage in the chat. for the panelists to look at and also for me to go back to. And I can just start off with the discussion saying that, and I kind of talked to Wày about this recently, but so I'm queer and I have a beautiful partner that's actually not here right now. She's in South Carolina. And she recently cut all her hair off right before the pandemic and is growing back now. And I am the person who has been doing her protective styles at least once a week for about a year now. And this passage, obviously, it made me think a lot about the intimacy of braiding hair. And I know that Robin is talking a lot about its relationship with Mother Earth. But I've been thinking a lot recently about how hair braiding, personally for me, has been a way to practice queer intimacy. Yeah. And as a person who, and also you read in my passage that I wrote for Bunker, as a person who's a survivor of sexual assault, and growing up, I have been trying to really address how I've merged sex with intimacy and how irresponsible that has been. And so I've been trying to figure out how can I find other ways of identifying intimacy and queerness outside of just the sexual realm. And I've had the privilege of finding that in hair braiding with my partner. So I don't know, do y'all understand what I'm saying? Or
Yes, yeah, of course.
So yeah, I don't know if either of y'all have ever thought about, I know like we often think about the braiding as like this cultural celebration, but I was wondering if either of y'all, having done your hair or having done someone else's hair, have y'all ever thought of the intimacy of it? Or yeah, even, or if you are queer or maybe around a queer community, have you ever heard anyone talk about kind of like the queerness of it as well?
Well, I haven't necessarily heard about or experienced like the queerness aspect, but just the care of doing hair and then that intimacy I think I experienced, but more on like a personal level, if that makes sense. Like more between like, because I usually don't allow, like I don't have other people do my hair. Like I usually do it myself. So I feel like that's answering the question, like that intimacy is there. And while you were speaking, I was just thinking about the passage and how the intimacy, like it flows between people, but then I think that intimacy flowing between people can also be how like a way in which we learn how to treat the earth, if that makes sense. And be in relationship with the earth, how we're in relationship with each other.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because you talked about your hair, like you not letting people's hair, and I wonder, does it have something to do with like your uncomfortability with the closeness of, because I know like I'm not gonna let just anybody do my hair. And I think partially that's because I don't want my hair to be looking crazy out here in these streets. But also, I don't know, it's like kind of, okay, so I feel really unattached to like white beauty salons. And it's partially because they don't know how to do our hair. But another part is there's this super closeness, and coming back to like the intimacy of like the person doing the braid and the person getting braided. There's this closeness that I feel like they kind of, like if a white beautician was in my head, that kind of intimacy just feels very like overstepping a boundary for me.
Too close.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels like, yeah, it's overstepping a boundary for me. So I don't know if maybe like, yeah, can you talk a little bit more about you just doing your hair?
I think it's funny that you mentioned that because I actually miss that closeness, and that's not why I don't let people in my hair. It's more like a control thing. Like so how do I say? So my mother was the only person that used to do my hair, and she was like, I'm gonna do it like this and I'm gonna do it like that. And I was like, but I don't like doing that. You know, the infamous, like you go to school with your hair looking like you don't want it to look, and it's a terrible experience. So I didn't want that. So I just decided to learn how to braid my own hair myself and to have that control over how I looked. And so that I could, you know, have a bit of agency for myself. So that was really the main point of why I started doing my own hair, and why I haven't let people in my hair like that. It's very rare that people would do my hair, but it's mainly because of like that first instance of wanting some kind of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's something else too, like something I'm thinking about too. And I've been doing my partner's hair. Her name's Talia, but she has not done my hair. So there is like this disconnect because I'm not the person getting my hair done.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if there is like a loss of agency when it sounds like for you, like that's the case when you were as a child. But like when you have somebody else kind of like doing your stuff, being in charge of your braiding and things, I guess you in a way do lose agency and you kind of let them be in charge. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust. Like you have to really trust that this person's going to, execute in a way that's going to make you comfortable. And that might be a lot, or sometimes that is a lot, to give somebody that much like agency over you and how you are looking and being perceived in the world, especially with your hair.
Do you think it takes a long time to establish that trust? Because for me personally, I don't think that trust in other people was established for me until I was well into adulthood and had a better relationship with my hairstylist, who's been my hairstylist for 10 years, was able to communicate exactly what I want. But it took a long time to get there. And especially because, like you said, Wày, about like not having agency. Like my mom was white, but she was very intentional about learning how to braid, learning protective styles for me and my sister. But it never felt like an intimate process. It felt like labor, because it's like my dad would comb and detangle our hair and he was not gentle. And then it was my mom's turn to like braid us up. And my mom, there were 4 of us. Like she was a stay-at-home mom, and I know now as an adult how tiring that is. And to just have Sunday night before you start your week all over again, to have to sit there and braid 2 heads, it was a lot for her. So it wasn't a pleasant experience for anybody. So it was not only laborious, I felt like I was taking from my mom and not having agency over how I looked, because she kept my hair in braids that I didn't like. And yeah, I hated it. I hated going to school looking like that. I wanted to like be able to wear my hair down and everything, and I just couldn't, because like my hair was not loose curls. It was very thick, very coarse. So like it had to stay in protective styles.
And that kind of made me think too, because I have a very similar experience. It was moments where it was, very like gentle, and like when I was younger, my mother used to like take down a braid and like just do this to my hair because she knew it would make me fall asleep like immediately. So like I remember things like that. But then I also remember her like, stop moving. And like, you're trying to control my head with that little pink brush. And that's not, that wasn't pleasant. But I wonder if like, I was thinking about like that labor, even though it's not pleasant, being some kind of way of showing care. I was thinking about that. Like, it wasn't pleasant, but like it wasn't still loving, I want to say. I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, is the labor aspect of it making it like loving? If that makes sense.
I'm not sure.
I think labor is a signifier of love. Can we view it that way?
Maybe not.
I mean, I can see that, like, especially when you think about it as a parenting role. But I don't know.
I know, that's really complicated.
I was talking to Wày about like how hair braiding for me, like it sometimes is traumatic. And I wrote about this in my writing for the bunker. And I think I had a line that was like, now I braid my partner's hair, and it's a traumatic experience. And it's partially because I was assaulted by my father, and he was at my mom is Japanese, and God knows she does not, even to this day, she does not know how to do my hair. And actually got keratin treatments for a long time in middle and high school because she preferred my hair straight. And so my dad, for a long part of my childhood, was a hair doer. And that was mostly just really tight ponytails. But for me, like hair has been this thing that I think I like didn't realize it until Wei said that. And now you're talking about it, but about like how it sometimes felt transactional. Because in the same time that my father was doing my hair, he was also assaulting me. And so it just felt like it was this weird relationship I built with hair braiding where it was this process of like, oh, I'm gonna forgive, and I'm a child, right? So this is how children process trauma. I'm gonna forgive my father today because he's doing my hair, and obviously this is labor of love from him. And it's like weird because the same hands that are assaulting me at night are the same hands that are taking and putting love into me in the morning and right before school. And it's, for me, it was that weird space of constantly going back and forth between like the hands who are raising me and are loving me and caring for me, but at the same time are causing me like immense pain and trauma. Yeah, so I want to say that labor is a signifier of love, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it is. And I think that at some point, I don't know if my dad loved me when he was doing my hair, but I think at some point that labor of my hair for him as a father was a signifier of responsibility and not necessarily out of love. Yeah, I don't know. What are y'all thinking?
I think what it reminded me of after I asked the question was that I wish I had the quote, but that Bell Hooks quote about like what love is and what love isn't. So I guess I kind of answered my own question because it's like, can love exist in the same vein that pain exists? Like, is that loving? And according to Bell Hooks, it's like, well, no. So I don't know. I think it's still like an interesting teeter-totter of like what love can be or how love can show up. Because I feel like at the end of the day, like I don't know, like how do we like what's the equation for love? Like that sounds so, but you know, like what makes up it?
Yeah. I think as someone who's like, now I play my father's role with the hair, with my partner. And I would lie if I say I don't cause my partner pain. You know, we get in fights all the time and we're growing as people. And especially when you're queer, like at a time period when everyone was developing like responsible, everybody was developing responsible dating like experiences in high school. We were just figuring out that we were even liking people that's not in the binary or that's not who we're supposed to like. So, you know, you get in your 20s as a queer person, you're dating seriously for the first time and you make a lot of mistakes. And oftentimes you make a lot of toxic mistakes because we're kind of still in like a high school mindset while dating in adulthood. So I would lie if I say I don't cause my partner pain. And so now I'm thinking of my role, right? Like as a person who like my partner gets down and sits on the floor and I do her hair like every week. And I'm this person that also causes pain, but also is creating love. And I feel like now I'm about to like argue with myself because maybe it is a labor of love. Maybe I think I'm thinking hard about this way because you brought up the bell hooks and how the hook says, yeah, like pain and love can't coexist. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. And I think that from a person who is trying to think of transformative justice and reformative justice, I think like when I was a child and my father was hurting me, and then when he woke up in the morning and he did what he did in fixing my hair, I think that part of me wanted to forgive him. But I also think that part of me wanted to give him a chance to love me because I know that he was capable of it. And I think now as I get older, I'm always coming back to those moments of him doing my hair, especially as me trying to like rebuild a relationship with my father, or him trying to rebuild a relationship with me and me giving him the chance to. I come back to those moments where I know that someone who causes pain is capable of love. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why hair braiding becomes this thing that is about, it feels transactional to me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like as Black women, we wind up compromising in some capacity? Like my father was physically abusive towards us, but then there were moments of tenderness with my father, you know, like he was rough when he would like brush our hair out, but occasionally like he would rub our head, he would like apologize for being too rough. And it's like, I would cherish those moments because they were very fleeting. And then when I was dating and I was younger, I wound up, you know, with abusive partners. And it's like, I would have moments of tenderness with these partners. I would have moments of intimacy with these partners. And I would think like, okay, well, maybe these moments make the pain worth it. But again, with the bell hooks reference, like pain and love are not supposed to exist in the same space. So are we like compromising those ideas to just like take advantage of intimacy when we get it? Because even like I'm in my 30s now and I still kind of function in these relationships that can be very cruel, but it's like I'll take advantage of the kind moments and I'll be like, well, I'll take this because it's better than that, you know? I always think of that Jenny Holzer quote, or rather the truism when she says, savor kindness because cruelty is always possible later. And I always think about that. But it's like, maybe we shouldn't savor the kindness. Like maybe we should throw that away because it comes at the expense of our pain. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not like a constant thing, it's still something that we have to deal with and then later have to reconcile with. When we have our own issues, like being adults and trying to function in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that, especially Black women, there's always this sacrifice, and it kind of sucks. I know, like, I was talking to someone one time about like the reporting, right? The reporting on my father, and like, oh well, you know, are you going to report him to the police? And we all know the police are like fucked up, right? We all know police bring nothing but violence, and when you are a Black girl who's being abused in a Black neighborhood by Black people, part of getting help is feeling guilt for getting help. Like, I think that that's the biggest process for me, where it was like, well, I don't want to bring the police in my home, and I don't want to bring the police into my neighborhood, and I don't want to give them another reason to put another Black person in jail. And I think that for a long time, that's what I was telling myself, right? Like, I don't want to be that person that just fucks up everything. And we get guilty for seeking help from a systematic issue, like a systematic solution that's inherently racist. But then no one ever like points fingers at the people who's hurting us. So they're like, oh, Teena, you're wrong for getting the police to come here, but your father isn't wrong for doing what he did to you. And they like, you know, they know that he's wrong, but no one's pointing fingers in the same way that they point fingers at Black women. Mm-hmm. And I think that, yeah, it's just an issue because we do end up compromising what we want, and we do end up compromising what we need in order to keep other people safe. And I think that it's just fucked up, especially Black girls are forced to be in that predicament. I know I was in a training the other day, and a question popped up that says, in our struggle for transformative and restorative justice, in our struggle for abolishing prisons and getting people the help they need. And I work for a sexual assault and domestic violence organization. And they were saying, in our struggle for that, how can we make sure that while we're getting help for people and that we're giving chances for people to become better, and while we're understanding that people sometimes are their circumstances and not their choices, while we're doing that, how can we make sure that that's not at the sacrifice and safety of Black women and girls? And I don't have an answer for that, right? Because it's like the more we give people space to find themselves, sometimes that means less space for us to be ourselves. And that's just, it's fucked up. And I think, yeah, when I'm reading this passage and I'm thinking of hair braiding a lot in my practice, and obviously it's this thing of cultural liberation and celebration and being myself. There's also this thing that sometimes feels transactional. And it feels like I gave moments of myself in hair doing, and I'm getting my hair done. I gave my dad space to love me in that way because I knew that he couldn't love me in other ways. And that's not fair. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think to what both of you were saying, it's like you hold on to these small moments of love, afraid that it won't come again. You know, it's like I'm gonna take what I can get because I know what it feels like when it's not here. So I'm going to hold on to this one nice moment because it's a unfamiliar good feeling. I'm gonna I want this, and maybe this is okay. Like if I should just string together all these like random okay moments, maybe that's okay. And I think that's just the space that we have been confined to live in. It's just like being okay with that stringing together. And I think we've done a lot with that stringing together. That could be a whole nother conversation. But you said something earlier, like when allowing people that space to like what grow themselves kind of pushes it into us like a smaller space to be, and that space is already as small as it is right now. Like we're already in a space that doesn't allow us to be full and like and experience love on like on a regular basis, let alone like a grand, you know,
Yeah.
abundant way.
Okay, so that was great. Thank y'all for that. We can move on to the next passage for whoever wants to go first or go second.
It's up to you. Do you want to go first?
I can go, yeah. So my passage is from the Bible, and I think it's called Ecclesiastics, but I might be pronouncing it wrong, so forgive me. And it's Ecclesiastics 9, 7, and 8. And it just says, "Go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already accepted your works. Let your garments always be white and let your head lack no oil." And I interpreted this as like live your life and live your life as full as you can, and not even just like live your life as full as you can, period. So but that made me think about myself and my hair, and just like the last 2 years of my hair journey, and like how I had my hair lacked oil. So I wasn't taking care of myself. And I have a lot of notes. I realized I'm gonna make it short. I'll just say that I needed to start caring for myself because I was realizing that I wasn't. And when COVID happened, it forced me to really slow down and to give myself a lot of care and attention and tenderness, and just like all these things that I didn't realize that I didn't have. And it became like not just like a task, because it was like, oh, it's wash day. Oh, I got to do my hair. It became like, well, I get to do my hair today. It was an event. It was a celebration, and it was very, very sacred, and it is. And I kind of made it into like this process of not only like care for myself, but like also ancestral care. Like looking at my hair as like a whole bunch of ancestors that I get to care for and care about. So I'm not sure how I wanted y'all to like interact with that, but maybe I'll ask the questions like, has hair, or where does hair and spirituality cross, if they cross for you, or at all?
For me, it definitely cross. I think it's so interesting because head on oil, like putting oil on your head or on your scalp, comes is like all throughout the Bible. It pops up so often, which is um I don't really like the Bible like that, but I think the idea of putting oil on your head feels very, it's like a simple thing that feels so sacred for me too. Um, yeah, that's what I had for that first. But as far as spiritual, I am on a journey of trying to figure out what I believe in. As a person who was raised Southern Baptist Christian, and still somewhat believes in Southern Baptist Christians' beliefs. But I've never really connected my hair to that belief. And I know I talked to you about this a little bit too, Wày, but for me, the spirituality of hair comes with it's like its relationship with trauma as far as like systematic trauma. So hair in Africa originated from Africa. Our ancestors did it in Africa. And this practice traveled the ocean, like it literally traveled the ocean to us. And when it got here, it became a practice of survival for a long time. For throughout slavery, it turned into this thing of storing rice. It turned into this thing of maps for the Underground Railroad. It turned into this practice of braiding cotton into your hair so that when your slave master raped you, you could swallow the cotton and abort the baby. Like it turned into this issue, this thing of using it as a sense of survival. Which is why I think about protective style so much, because I think of like that as protect, like you say, protecting our ancestors. And I get so caught up in the beautiful spiritual parts of it, like that I'm missing because of slavery and because of how it had to travel here and translate through the ocean as something else than what it was originally for. So it actually, I get so heartbroken thinking of like all of the things that hair could have been if white people did not colonize what it is now. Like it's not at all existing in a way that it should have been existing for us. And I don't have that connection because it translated into something that is now full of trauma and full of survival skills. And I always come back to like, what would my hair practice be if it didn't have to deal with, if trauma didn't happen to it? And I don't know what that is. And I think that you asking me, what's the spiritual connection, right, to it? It's like none. And that's not my fault. And that's completely, colonizers' fault. I don't have a spiritual connection to it. I don't even know who my ancestors are. I don't even know what part of Africa I'm from. We know different parts of Africa have different ways of doing hair and using hair. So I don't have a spiritual connection because that was taken away from me. Yeah.
I tend to think a little more optimistically, although I totally understand because I'm very disconnected from my culture. And that's saying a lot because I think most of us, for me, I'm probably like 4 generations removed from slavery because, we've at least been able to like trace our family tree. So we know, my great grandmother was born on a plantation, and to have that knowledge, but still not have any ancestral connections, it does hurt. And it does definitely give me a feeling of just like not belonging. And I think it's definitely intensified when like you have a parent that's not Black. There's like a further disconnect. But I will say that, these things that we took with us and these practices that originated in Africa and spread across the diaspora, those are skills that only we are capable of. And it comes from somewhere. And, when we look at the women, even we have this whole trend of like wig making, and it takes a very particular skill set that white people simply do not have. They don't have it. It's not there. They don't have the range. And, even past like wigs, braiding styles, even really intricate braiding styles, it comes from somewhere. And I think so many of us carry this like innate knowledge. Even when you look at the process of hair care and having salons, like it comes from somewhere. Like we're drawing from somewhere, even if we don't realize it. But you're right, Teena, it is really unfair that we don't know where we're drawing it from. We have this knowledge and it's like, okay, we can vaguely say like it's ancestral, but we can't trace it. We can't feel it outside of ourselves. And that is like really heartbreaking for a lot of people. And I think even those of us who, will journey back to Africa, I remember Vanessa German, who's an amazing Pittsburgh-based artist. I was at one of her speaking engagements and she talked about how she has so many friends who had similar feelings of just being lost and being disconnected, and they'll like travel to Africa, and so many of them will say they like searched everybody's faces, like trying to find traces of themselves and their history, and just trying to sort of bridge that disconnect. So yeah, again, it is unfortunate, but there are good things we can take from it and skills that we have that, you know, nobody else does. And that is a beautiful thing. And I think it adds to, you know, like we talked about before, the connectedness with the braiding and the process, like that was something that has roots in Africa.
I would say this, yeah, I agree with everything that was already said. And we don't really have direct pull. I don't have a direct pull. And my spirituality is completely self-made. I don't have any books. I don't like, well, I have books, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking for somebody to tell me what my spiritual practice is. I make it by myself. So I told myself that my hair practice and my hair doing is a spiritual practice. So it is. And everything that these ancestors that we have, that they taught us, it comes through. And I don't necessarily need to know their names to feel their love and to feel that spiritual connection, because it's always going to be there. And it's like, it is unfortunate that we don't have that direct connection and that direct knowing, but we can make something with what we do know. And that's what my spiritual practice is. It's not directly like, oh, it's like, sorry, but it's like, it's based in what I do know. Cause what we don't know it is painful to remember or to not remember, you know, all the things that we should know that we don't. But I think that spirituality doesn't have to necessarily be like, oh, my people from this place did this, so that's what I do. It's like, what do you do? What's divine for you? And I think we've been doing that over and over again for generation after generation. So yeah, I think that's where my connection is, just like, how can I make this how can I make my life as spiritual as possible, you know, or divine as possible? And I think that's very Black. You know, I think we do that all the time, even if you don't put language to it, you know. Yeah.
All right, we can move to the last passage, unless anybody else has anything to add. I know we have. I'm watching the chat to make sure Harrison doesn't. You're like, y'all going over, but yeah.
Well, my passage is very brief, but it's from Emma DeBerry's The Tangled History of Black Hair Culture. And she talks a lot about her lived experiences as a biracial woman who grew up in Ireland, who similarly to me, like, she didn't have what one would typically associate with being biracial, at least like not that hair type. Her hair was very coarse. She had to hear a lot of backhanded comments from a predominantly white community about how they expected her to have nicer hair, you know, sideways comments to her mom about, you know, are you going to do something about her hair? And she went through a lot of struggles with self-acceptance and things along those lines, as well as confronting the ideals of featureism and colorism that kind of aligns with people thinking that being mixed race, you know, means one thing when, you know, Blackness is very vast, it's very nuanced. So, I mean, we know better, right? So the quote is, beauty shops could have been a hell of a place to ferment a revolution. And from that, I drew sort of the idea that, like, beauty salons and barbershops function as sacred spaces, right? They're communal, they're very community oriented. And for the purpose of this conversation, we could ignore barbershop and we'll just speak in the context of beauty salons, because I know barbershops have a lot with them, especially within queer culture. You know, there's not always that acceptance, and that's something that we need to get in check. So we'll focus on beauty shops. And yeah, I think there's a lot of power in the camaraderie of Black people celebrating one another. I think there's beauty in the vulnerability that you have going into a beauty salon. I know for me personally, my spot has always been a place of rest, a place of refuge, a place of feeling very welcome. I've gone through, you know, difficult bouts with my mental health, and I was still able to feel safe and feel like okay in my beauty shop. And even better, like, I felt better leaving there because of the time and attention, the care that went into doing something that I wasn't capable of doing myself because I just wasn't in a good mental space. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about beauty shop culture and how it may or may not have served you in that way. I know, Wei, you talked about doing your hair a lot yourself, but I think there's beauty in that process too. And I know the reason I wear my hair straightened is because my natural hair is very difficult to maintain. And unfortunately, I just don't have the time to maintain it. But the fact that you make that time for yourself, it's beautiful. I think that having that extra time and dedicating that extra time to yourself as a Black woman is luxurious, and Black women deserve to live in luxury. And I think we shouldn't commodify time as much as we should, but like capitalism, which is rooted in white supremacy, has kind of like forced us to do that. So the fact that you prioritize yourself and taking that time to care for yourself, and even you, Teena, doing that with your partner, that's beautiful. And I love that so much for y'all. And I want more Black women to do that. And I hate the stigma that like natural hair is unkept, because there's so much time and labor and care and expensive product that goes into maintaining those styles. And natural hair women go to beauty shops too. It's just, it looks unkept by Eurocentric standards, and that's the problem. So yeah, although like I still wear my hair straightened, I advocate for natural hair and women going through that process and that journey, because it's self-actualization and it is luxurious. So yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I love this quote. I'm like just seeing it for the first time. I know it was like in the chat earlier before we met before. So I was like trying to get everything together. This quote has me thinking of so many things. And I think I must go back really quick to something Wei said before we got into your quote of like, Black people, a Black thing to do is to make something out of nothing, right? And I think what is so amazing about beauty salons is that it's everywhere. It's not just in like these stores or like, you know, a commercial space. Like people have whole ass beauty salons in their living room. And I think that that is just simply amazing. Like it's amazing. And beauty salon culture definitely gives this space of community. And I'm even gonna tie in barbershops real quick because they are homophobic and they be on some other shit. But, and I hate this because they do be on some other shit, but they give a sense of community to people, to the Black man who is homophobic. And it's just like, it becomes this space of constantly feeling safe, which is something that we don't get the luxury of having public spaces that feel safe to us. And it's gatekeeping. And I'm all for gatekeeping Black culture. And so, you know, if a white girl roll up in the beauty salon, we all gonna be looking like, who is she? What is she doing? Why is she here? It's the same thing for when I go get my nails done. And this is like kind of connected, but not. I go get my nails done in the hood and a white girl walk up in the nail salon and all of the Black girls are like, why are you here? Where are you coming from? Why extra $10 charged to get a designer finger? Like it's all, I love how the space is, it's a space that is just naturally gate kept, where if someone is not about the culture, I guess you can come in because there's discrimination laws and we, for some reason, can't discriminate against white people. But like they still don't have a connection to the culture that's there. You know, we're going to be talking about shit that they don't know anything about. We're going to be watching shows and TV that they do not watch on a regular basis. There's going to be gospel music playing on Sundays that they don't know because they listen to that Christian white people shit. And so I think that it gives this space of safety and sacredness. And it does ferment a revolution. Like there's so many, it is this spot where you come to revolutionize at, whether it's like revolutionizing the beauty standards in America, reclaiming your space in the commercial world, saying fuck capitalism, I am going to take this time to take care of myself. And then literally a space where we just come and talk shit about other people that be having us effed up all day. Yeah, and it has served me throughout my life. It's really serviced me. And I have been to a series of beauty salons. I used to get so when I got keratin treatments, which is like the straightening process, I actually went to a Dominican beauty salon. And it was Afro-Dominican. And then for a long time I lived in Mississippi, and I went to a white beauty salon, which was it was hell. Like, it was one of the worst experiences of my life as far as like getting my hair done in the public spaces. And then when I moved back home to South Carolina, I went to a black beauty salon that my aunt went to frequently, where it's like all of these old aunts are like doing jerry curls still, which is amazing. But it does serve as a space of community. It does serve as this sense of safety. And I think that's why I get so heartbroken when I go to a beauty shop. And I think this is like a conversation that needs to be had because it's interconnected with beauty salons. But you go to a beauty shop and you feel this like anti-Blackness and racism towards you from usually Asian owners. And I think that that's what also frustrates me, because I don't think that they understand that this beauty salon and this beauty shop is also a space of sacredness for us. Like, this is a space where we're seeking safety. And that safety sometimes, in a sense, is taken away from us when we're like followed around the beauty shop. Like, I want to sit here for 20 minutes and look at the different Blue Magics and figure out which one I'm taking home. And I shouldn't be policed while doing that. And I think that if there was this real conversation of how these spaces that are geared towards our hair and our culture are actually spaces that we seek safety in, hopefully people will then check their anti-Blackness, and also try to provide us even more safe space. But me and my partner actually, we recently started shopping at this Black-owned beauty salon, and it has really been a different experience. You know, like, there's somebody's there, like, recommending products, telling us like what our hair needs. They are natural. They know everything. Like, and it really, like, the beauty salon and the beauty shop has, for me, merged into this space of safety too. And this has happened. I mean, it's always been that space for the beauty salon, but this has only recently happened within the last 2 months, when now we're going to a beauty shop that's also owned by a Black woman. And now this is another space of safety for me, and another space where I can be vulnerable and talk about, and my hair is a vulnerable stain. Like, it's something that I'm vulnerable about talking about. So yeah, that's kind of like my thing. But yeah, and then also they just this is like just good news, but they just made it legal for people to not have to go to school to be hair braiders.
Oh wow, I wonder how that applies to PA. I never actually looked into it, because I don't care. You can braid, I'm gonna go to you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, because before there was fines, but yeah, so that's also a part of that. I don't know if you have anything to add with.
Yeah. It was something that y'all said a while back that I wanted to like add on to about like beauty salon culture and like that safety and community. And just to tie back to what I was saying, I feel like that can be a type of church too. Like, it's something about that safety and about that like safety net and that vulnerability to just be, because I think that's what it is. Like, when you're in a space with people that you don't have to explain yourself 1,000 times, or you don't feel like you have to guard or whatever, that vulnerability is something spiritual. And I think that that's what gives it like that sacred feeling. It's like that shared vulnerability with other people in your community that I didn't need to experience. I only went to the beauty salon twice in my whole life. And it was for 2 weddings, and my ears got all burnt up and it was terrible. But I still remember when I was there, that like sense of community, because I know how long it took for me to get my hair done, because they kept talking to each other and laughing at this and that. And it was still a beautiful experience that I remember, even though I was a child and, you know, didn't go very often. But I think it's just something about that vulnerability that I'm still tying it back into like this. I think it's something very spiritual about the whole aspect of like caring for yourself and other people.
And and this is like circling back to the beginning of the panel, but it's trust, right? Like, it's a space of trust where we're trusting. I don't know about y'all, but my hair is my life. So I'm trusting you with my life if you are in my head. So yeah, but it's a space of trust. And I think it's so sad, but like, as a child, I think we take that for granted. Like, the beauty salon space, like I used to go with my aunt to the beauty salon, and I used to hate it. Like, I'm ready to go. Why are we here? Why are you getting your second jerry curl this month? But yeah, it's a space of safety and trust and love and labor. Um, yeah.
I actually never went growing up. I remember sitting with my mom because my mom stayed with her nails done. So I would always sit at the nail salons with her. And I remember going to the barbershop with my dad a few times. But the first time I went to a beauty shop and actually got my hair done was when I moved to Pittsburgh because I'm from upstate New York and my Nana took me. So my first wash and set was like because of my Nana. And I don't think my Nana like understood like my hair type, but like my hair wants to be curly. So when it's humid, if it's rained, it's gonna curl up. So like wash and sets wouldn't last. And I remember my Nana would get so frustrated. I'd be like, Nana, it's just my hair. But I remember like she would always talk about like when my cousin would get her hair done and she's like, Sharon found a new stylist and her hair like swishes and it blows in the wind. And like, I have my Nana in mind now when I get my hair done. Cause even, you know, she's passed many, many years ago, but even now I'm like, oh, Nana would love my hair. Cause you know, blows in the wind. So yeah, and I have had periods where I've gone natural and been able to maintain curly protective styles, but that came with a lot of, you know, accepting my hair for what it is rather than trying to make it look like I wanted it to look. Like I wanted the loose curl patterns and that's just not my hair. So once I got past the point of trying to make it something that I wasn't, I was much happier. So yeah, I've learned to like love my natural hair and everything that it is and like my thickness and everything. And that's another reason why I love my shop because I've been to places that will charge extra if your hair is too thick. And I'm like, that's anti-Black. Like Black people have thick hair and my shop does not do that. So very happy. It's been 10 years now. I know I'm in the right place.
I might need to come.
I'm telling you, look.
Okay, so if there's any questions, I know Harrison put in the chat for everyone who might have questions. But if there's any questions, please put them in the chat. Or we can just talk about it as a passage. But yeah. And I don't know if Harrison, you want to hop back on.
Hey, yeah, so we're open to questions. We haven't gotten any yet. But yeah, I mean, I think if you guys have some other thoughts or other passages, we can keep going, and then I'll hop in if a question comes in. You can all discuss it together.
Everyone always gets shy when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn my light on real quick.
I do want to talk about, I think that this is like more so for me because I'm an artist who uses hair. But I know when I first started using hair, I actually got super frustrated because it was always connected to, okay, so I did this one piece where it was hair like submerged in ice and the ice was like slowly melting. And I had this Black man who critiqued it and he was like, yeah, it's like it's kind of like, you know, like ghetto Black women and like the femininity fading away and just like on some other shit. But I like got actually really frustrated because, well, I got frustrated because of so many things. But I think one is how hair, or specifically Kanakalan hair and hair that is, I guess, not from our head, so it's a problem, I don't know. But how it's really like placed in this box of identity of like the ghetto Black woman. Although I can't even begin to name the amount of white women that have extensions, and for some reason that's a different thing. But also how like hair has like hyper racialized my work, and this is about to be an unpopular opinion, but hair has hyper racialized my work so much to the point that I actually get frustrated when I see non-Black people using hair in their work. And for me, it's because like, and I guess it's because I'm a Black woman. But people see my work and they're like, oh, there's hair in your work. So it's automatically about race. And when I first started using hair, it was just this material that I had access to, like the same way that, and I used this example when I was talking to somebody about it, but the same way that Eva Hess has had access to thread or had access to polyacrylic or whatever she had access to. And no one ever questioned like, oh, is your polyacrylic about hardware culture? Like, you know, but the minute that I put hair in my work, it became this thing that's hyper racialized. And I I always bring this up because I'm okay with it being hyper racialized now because it is, and my work is going to be racialized because my identity is racialized, and as long as I live in the United States of America, and being Black is this thing that's putting you in like the other box, that's going to be the case for me all the time. And I think now with me, I get so frustrated when I see specifically white women, because I haven't seen white men that much yet, but white women use hair in their work. It gets me frustrated because I feel like there needs to be an adjustment in your work about how hair is racialized and how it's not being racialized to you because you're not Black. Um, yeah, and I know like hair as a material in art practices is growing so much now, which I'm so happy to see. But yeah, it's just like this frustration. And um, I've always been a person where people are like, you know how Black people and Black artists are sometimes like, I'm an artist, not a Black artist. My work doesn't have anything to do with being Black. And for me, it's the opposite, where like my work has everything to do with me being Black because I can't disconnect the two the same way that my work has everything to do with me being Asian, because I can't disconnect from being Asian. But then we need to have a conversation about how this white artist using Kanaka hair in her work has everything to do with her being white, because she shouldn't be able to separate the two, and yet she gets the privilege to do so. Yeah, and that just kind of frustrates me. And I feel like for some people that's an unpopular opinion, but like I said, I'm all for gatekeeping culture. So
yeah, it's because whiteness gets to be seen as neutral or blank, and they get to, you know, kind of just pick and choose whatever material without it kind of coming back, and not only like a racialized way, but also I think a lot of times when people see your work, not only do they racialize it, but they automatically put trauma on it, like even without reading the bio. It's, oh, this is about Black trauma. It's like, nobody said that, but it's because like Blackness has all these different connotations attached to it from things outside of our control, you know. But I agree. I feel like we have this conversation all the time. We should definitely just start calling white artists, you know, because they are white artists and their whiteness does influence their work. Yeah. And that's me quoting you.
But they don't outright say that because whiteness is kind of this invisible thing. And it's invisible, and they just live in their whiteness, and there's like no awareness of it until it's interrupted by like a Black presence or having to confront white supremacy or anything like that. So they live freely in their whiteness, and they never have to think about it the same way we always have to think about Blackness. And I used to be really sensitive about the language because I've only been a practicing artist for about 4 years. And initially, like, I knew what I was trying to say with my work, but I was kind of trying to be fluid enough so that it could be interpreted in different ways. But then I immediately realized like I didn't care about the white gaze. And like now I'm very forthcoming about saying that like my work is about Blackness because that's the only way I've ever identified. That's even growing up, like I had a white mom, but like we knew we were Black. We just had a white mom. So yeah, and it's based on my lived experiences, and like my lived experiences are as a Black woman. And there are times when I have had to dial it back because, you know, there's always a separate conversation about colorism and privilege and things like that. And I did I'm sorry, my mind just like, I did a performance piece at the Carnegie Museum where I staged a hair braiding. And the premise of it was, you know, taking up space in a place that traditionally was not meant for us to take up space. And then some of the criticisms were, well, you know, as a light-skinned, you know, biracial person, you already kind of take up space. So I was like, bet, you're absolutely right. So I want to make this performance something that like other Black women can do. Like, I'm not going to gatekeep this performance. And unfortunately, due to COVID, I wasn't able to include hair braiding in a show that I recently curated. But that was the plan. And but I want to continue to, you know, invite Black women to hopefully participate in whatever I have going on and continue to do staged hair braidings, because again, yeah, like it's something that is the norm like across our culture. So I shouldn't be the gatekeeper of that, and I shouldn't be the only person, you know, taking up space. So yeah, but my work is very Black, and I'll tell everybody, like, I don't care about the white gaze. If you're here, that's great, but this work's not for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I always just wonder, like, how can we dismantle that neutrality? And I mean, and it's not our job to dismantle, which is a whole other thing, but how can that neutrality and whiteness be dismantled? I taught a class and it was full of white students, and Wei was actually in this class. And every time a white student went up and did their work, I always was like, okay, and how is whiteness addressing, like, how are you addressing whiteness in your work? And there was a few times people actually cried. It was like, my work isn't even about race. And it's like, yes, it is. It has everything to do with race. Like, you're doing work about your mental health, but you're also a white woman who has the most privileges in studies around mental health. So we need to address that. And that's not all trying to like discredit your mental health. It's about talking about how whiteness is informing your work, because it does. And like, we're placed in a box where we're always having to say that blackness informs our work, or people just assume blackness informs our work. And so it's like, well, you don't get the privilege to just ignore the fact that you're white anymore. Like, you don't get it. Like, next time, you know, a museum have a show and there's nothing but white artists, we need to call it what it is, a white artist show. Like, stop calling it like Threads show on multidisciplinary craft. No, all of this are white. These are all white women. This is a white woman show. You should call it Threads white women show. Like, because that's what it is. And the minute that it's like a Black American show, the 50 Black Americans in Pittsburgh or something, like, it's so frustrating. I think we have a question. Okay, Harrison. My understanding of anointing oil is not temporal, but as one's inner strength, like Simpson's shreds. Do you feel that Black hair is more about strength than beauty? If there is a dichotomy between the two, Jonathan.
I feel like I think it's both. I don't want to be like it's strength or beauty. I think two things can exist at the same time. I feel like we said earlier, or like you were saying earlier, Teena, about like all this trauma being with like the history, and like kind of having to be strong. But you know, that is one part, and then there's this whole other part of this like undeniable beauty. So I don't know if I could like pick one or the other. I think they just weirdly exist at the same time.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of duality. And I think some of the language we use to even like describe our hair, like I know I've referenced my hair being coarse multiple times. Coarse isn't necessarily a bad thing. And the duality in Black hair is like, you know, we may use these negative terms to refer to it, but it's like, nah, our hair, it's so like delicate and fragile, and it has to be cared for and tended to very carefully, or it'll break off because, you know, it's vulnerable. But I think the strength and resilience probably comes from just Blackness in itself, right? Like when you think of Blackness, whether negative or not, you think of strength, you think of resilience as something that's always kind of associated with Blackness. But even that could be like a negative thing. Like, why should we associate Blackness with resilience and strength? Like, why can't we be vulnerable? You know, why can't we be open and tender and gentle and all those things? So I don't know. I don't know. Teena, what do you think?
I'm like stuck. Because I'm thinking of, yeah, like you were talking about your hair being coarse. And I think that there's this movement right now in the hair. I don't know if anybody is like, in that's watching is updated with the hair, beauty hair culture or whatever. But there is a movement in natural hair culture right now to have healthy hair and not just pretty hair. And like pretty hair was actually like an anti-Black thing to want, you know? And I think I recently watched a video of this girl saying like, people are obsessed with curls, you know? People are so obsessed with curls, and it's detrimental to people or Black women who have the coarse hair that don't have the certain type of curl pattern. And I think specifically, and I'm about to call myself out, when I started doing my girlfriend's hair, she has coarse hair. And I was doing these twist outs in hopes that her hair would form this pretty curl pattern. But that's just not what her hair is. And I had to really check the anti-Blackness in me and the colorism in me to realize that like my standard for what I was holding her hair to be was actually really fucked up. And I think that there is this I want to say that like I actually don't want it to have anything to do with beauty, because beauty is always like engulfed in this idea of a colonialist idea of what beauty is, where um like, oh, your hair is like, even with like a white, like literally the other day I was out with Way, and this white guy tried to touch my hair, and he was like, your hair's so beautiful, and tried literally lifted his hand to touch my hair, and I physically stepped back. And it like disgusted me, one, that he was trying to like invade my space and touch something that's very personal to me, but two, that he complimented my hair. Like, it felt like, one, this is a compliment that I do not want. And I know that you're saying this because my hair is a curl pattern that is a part of beauty standards, that's acceptable to beauty standards in the same way that my girlfriend hair isn't. And I disown that compliment, because that's not telling me my hair is beautiful because it's curly, but not telling my girlfriend that her hair is beautiful because it's coily. That's a backhanded compliment. That's not something that I actually want to be a part of. That's an oppressive practice that I don't want to be engaged with. And I think it's to the point where now when people like compliment my hair, I'm actually just going to be like, my hair is strong. And I think that's why I'm stuck on it, because I do want my hair to be beautiful, and I do want to see hair as beautiful, and it is beautiful. But I feel like we're so stuck in this ideology of what beauty is in America that I really want us to be disconnected with worrying about if our hair is beautiful, and just worried about it being healthy and strong. And it, like you said, the hair is so fragile, and it does take so much to take care of it. So I am like thinking the goal should be to have really healthy, strong hair, regardless of what it's supposed to look like, or what we want it to look like. And that's been kind of like my goal in doing my partner's hair now, where it's not even like, after I check my anti-Blackness, like, I'm not thinking anymore about what type of curl I want her to have, but what style can I put it in so that it can soak up all of its nutrients from this leave-in, and it can be all healthy and whatever. And so, yeah, that's kind of just where I'm at with that.
Tamaya Bridges runs a natural hair collective in Pittsburgh, and through her work, she definitely advocates for healthy hair. And I think the way she functions should be the norm across the natural hair community. She's very intentional about creating space for darker skinned women. She's very intentional about highlighting curl patterns that aren't traditionally seen as accepted, even within the natural hair community, because featureism is a big thing. And she teaches her clients, like, there's no such thing as, good curls, like the hair growing out of your head. That's good curls. Like, those are yours. They're unique. They belong to you. And she definitely advocates for hair care above, trying to like look acceptable. And I know she's had clients who went the natural route and probably came in wanting to look a certain way. And she's like, nah, you need to look how you look, and just make sure that your hair is healthy and well maintained. And that should be your primary focus. And I know the women who've worked with her, who would speak on her, like, they say the most amazing things about her and her process and the work that she's done. And she was like one of the early pioneers of like the online natural hair community, before that became a big thing. So she's, been involved since the very beginning, and definitely tries to go against the featureism and the colorism that are aligned with the natural hair community, because it's problematic too there, man.
Yeah. And I'm just coming back to like the comment on like the inner strength, like sex and strength. And yeah, I just keep thinking about how powerful dreads are. But that's just like a whole conversation. But I think dread specifically really, really like challenges this idea of hair fragility. Where obviously your hair to be dreaded is like in a supreme fragile state, but at the same time, it's such a strong state for your hair to be in. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like this double-edged sword. I think that's the term. But yeah, so I keep thinking about that as well.
Yeah. I don't like the term dread. I like lock, because dread is, I don't know, but I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think also, well, yeah, because how locks are formed, they're just like, I think it's more strong, but it's like, I don't want to look at it like that. I feel like when we look at it like, to go back to the question, I think it was beautiful first, but like the strength came from this constant threat of violence, you know. But I feel like it still goes back to what we were saying, is that unfortunately they both exist at the same time. But with locks, it's like this beautiful, because how locks are formed is like the curl just wraps around itself. And I'm looking at that as like this beautiful relationship with the curl. Like they're just coming together and being like this one strong little thing. And I think, again, strength and beauty, I don't know if you can disconnect them per se.
Yeah. That's a beautiful reference, because that's very true. And that's why when white people have dreads, they have to like go and get them done. Their hair doesn't naturally dread.
Those are dreads. Yeah.
In their hair, it gets tangled. Those are not locks.
Those are maps.
Yeah. I think that's very, I'm actually going to keep thinking about the curl curling into itself. That's a very beautiful reference. And yeah, I think like we're almost at time. So I think the last thing I'm going to leave us with is my question that I'm getting from this whole conversation is like, at what point does strength become harmful? Because I know like we keep saying like, oh, it's beautiful. And I know that Ontario, for a second, you talked about how like we should have an opportunity to be soft and gentle. And yeah, so I'm thinking at some point or at what point does looking at the beauty and strength become something that's violent? Yeah, and that's kind of the last thought I have.
Like a thought, do you want us to answer that now, or do you want us to like think about that as we part?
We can think about it as we part.
Yeah, I gotta take that one with me.
Yeah, that's a big question.
All right, well, we are just about time. So thank you, Teena, Wày, and Tara, for that awesome conversation. Definitely a lot to think about, not just that last comment, but
yeah, thank you, Teena, for everything and for your contributions and putting us together in this very informal space. I really, really appreciate you.
Yes. Thanks y'all for being a part of it. It's like a circle of thanks, but y'all really, I'm so appreciative, and I'm so thankful that y'all were so open to what I wanted, like how I wanted the panel to function. So yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you, Wày, for sharing all of your experiences.
No problem. This is so exciting. I'm so glad to be in conversation with y'all. This is fun.
Me too. This is a beautiful format. All artist talk should be like this. Team, you should just facilitate everything.
I agree.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to take this last opportunity to promote also Teena's piece that inspired this talk in the Bunker Reviews handoff series titled "Things I Took from My Father." I'll post a link right now, and you can find it on bunkerprojects.org. Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming. This talk has been recorded. We're going to post it online in the next week, so you can share it with everyone that wasn't able to make it. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. And also, open call. We have an open call at Bunker right now for co-residency. Applications closed 19th. So make sure you get those submitted too. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.